You know, when we think about the AI revolution, we usually picture things like lines of code, right? Or maybe these complex, abstract algorithms. But the reality? It's way more physical. It's about steel and concrete and just a massive amount of power. We are right in the middle of a colossal construction project, maybe the biggest one our species has ever taken on. And it's all happening right now in some of the most remote places on Earth.
And look, that's not an exaggeration. That's a direct quote from one of the key players in this whole race, and it just perfectly captures the unbelievable scale of what's going on. We're not just building data centers anymore, we're essentially building this superhighway system for modern intelligence. And this race for who gets to dominate is really playing out as a tale of two deserts.
So on one side, you've got the wide-open plains of West Texas. That's home to a massive project that everyone's talking about. And on the other side, the remote deserts of Xinjiang, China, where a plan that's just as ambitious but way more secretive is starting to take shape. This is the new battleground for AI supremacy.
Okay, so let's start with the American side of the story. Out in Abilene, Texas, a project so huge it's been codenamed Stargate is literally rising from the red dirt. And believe me, it has the entire tech world watching its every move. Now, this is not your typical data center, the kind that's just filled with servers for your social media feed or for streaming movies. This is something completely new. It's being called an AI factory. The raw materials going in are data and electricity, but the finished product, the thing actually being manufactured here, is intelligence itself.
The financial ambition behind this is just staggering. The partners involved have basically said they are ready to invest up to $500 billion across multiple sites to get this AI factory running. It's a number that's so big it almost doesn't feel real, and it's a huge testament to the value they think they're building.
So, what does that kind of money get you? Well, for starters, how about 400,000 of NVIDIA's next-generation Blackwell AI chips? And get this, that's just for the first site in Abilene, a phase that's been very fittingly codenamed Project Ludicrous. This alone would create one of the largest compute clusters on the planet, basically a single massive supercomputer.
And all of this hardware, all of this infrastructure, it all points to the single biggest challenge of all, power. The Abilene site by itself is going to need 1.2 gigawatts of electricity. To put that into perspective for you, that's enough energy to power about 750,000 American homes. It's an almost unimaginable amount of juice for just one facility.
So who is the dream team behind this monumental effort? Well, it's a coalition of giants. You've got OpenAI, they're the brain that's demanding all this computational power. You've got SoftBank, they're the investor, bringing the cash. And then there's Oracle, the builder, who's tasked with actually putting these massive data centers together at an incredible speed.
Okay, so now let's turn our attention across the Pacific. Because while Stargate is being built right out in the open, an even more audacious plan is apparently taking shape in the shadows, deep in the deserts of China.
It's really the question on everybody's mind in the tech world, right? In a race like this, you can't just focus on your own progress. You have to know what the competition is up to. And what China seems to be doing in the remote Xinjiang region is raising a lot of eyebrows and a lot of questions.
Now, to really understand China's project, you first have to get this really critical piece of geopolitical context. The U.S. has put in place what it calls a small yard, high fence policy, basically using very strict sanctions to try and block China's access to the most powerful AI chips, the very hardware you need to train advanced AI models.
And here's why those sanctions matter so much. A single banned NVIDIA H100 chip, which is the industry gold standards for training AI, has 3 to 4 times the computing power of the best homegrown alternative that's available in China, like Huawei's Ascend 910B. So this performance gap is a massive motivator for China to find a way around that blockade. And this is where the mystery really gets deep. A Bloomberg investigation managed to unearth official project documents from Xinjiang, and they detail plans for a gigantic AI megaplex. But the shocking part? These plans explicitly state that they intend to use over 115,000 of these high-end NVIDIA chips, the very ones that are supposed to be banned from ever entering the country. So this raises the multi-billion-dollar question. Are these Chinese companies just bluffing to get their projects approved, or have they actually found a way around the sanctions? Which would suggest there's this massive, sophisticated smuggling network that U.S. officials might not even know about.
But here's the thing. Despite this intense rivalry, both the US and China are running headfirst into the exact same walls. These are shared problems, shared crises that threaten to slow this whole AI infrastructure boom down for everybody, no matter who's in the lead.
I mean, just look at this energy explosion.
20 years ago, a standard data center rack used about 4 kilowatts of power, okay? Today, a rack that's full of the latest AI GPUs, it needs 130 kilowatts. That is a mind-boggling increase. And this isn't just some technical problem to solve. It's a potential existential threat to this whole idea that bigger is always better in AI.
And it's not just about power, you know. The entire system is built on this incredibly fragile, interconnected global supply chain. You've got the most advanced chips being designed in the US, then they're manufactured in Taiwan, and then they're put into systems using materials like steel and aluminum that often come from China. Any little bit of geopolitical tension puts this entire chain and the AI boom itself at huge risk.
So amid this absolutely frantic race to just build bigger and bigger and bigger, a really critical question is starting to pop up from inside the AI community itself. Is just throwing more raw computing power at the problem the only way to do this? Or could there be a smarter way?
And this brings us to what's being called the DeepSeek surprise. A Chinese AI startup released a model that performed at a similar level to the top US models, but, and here's the kicker, they claim to have trained it using way fewer and much less powerful chips. This achievement sent some real ripples through the industry, and it raised this fascinating question of whether efficiency, not just raw scale, could actually be the key to winning the AI race.
So let's zoom out. This isn't just some technical or financial competition. This global race to build AI infrastructure has some profound implications for local communities, for the future of work, and yeah, ultimately, for all of us.
You know, for communities like Abilene, Texas, getting a project like Stargate is a massive economic gamble. The town actually agreed to an 85% property tax break just to lure the project in. The mayor, well, he sees it as getting a piece of a multi-billion-dollar pie. He's hoping it'll pave streets and help him hire more police officers, even if the jobs that were promised are still pretty uncertain.
And what is all this infrastructure ultimately for? Well, Sam Altman from OpenAI connects it directly to a sci-fi future that he believes is just around the corner, a world where humanoid robots are a common sight. So this massive physical build-out is really the foundation for a world that's going to look very, very different from the one we live in today.
Which leaves us with this final and, I think, crucial question. As these behemoths of steel and silicon rise up from the desert, powered by enough energy for entire cities, we just have to ask ourselves, in our frantic race to build the infrastructure for artificial intelligence, what kind of human future are we actually creating?